This is a series of instructional videos for building repertoire for Oktoberfest gigs. My name is Alex Meixner. I'm an accordionist and band leader from Florida who has performed at hundreds, maybe even thousands of Oktoberfests and beer halls throughout the United States and Canada. Through this series of courses, I hope to help you build your repertoire so that you connect with audiences of all different ages at Oktoberfest celebrations. Help you find your own voice and style in this music, get more and even better gigs, feel more confident on stage, and play with style that's going to help you express yourself and connect with the audiences, keeping the theme of German Oktoberfest and making it relevant to your audience here in the United States and Canada. I'm going to just start off and play a simple little song. This is a little song called Die lustige Hutzlikeburg, or The Jolly Lumberjack. This is a traditional old German polka march, and I hope you enjoy it. This lesson is going to be addressing the expectations of an audience at an Oktoberfest celebration. One of the main things about the Oktoberfest is that you need to connect with the audience. By connecting with the audience, that's what's going to ensure that your performance is going to be a success. You have to find out what those expectations are. Appearance is an important part of that. Part of the reason that you're going to get a gig as an accordionist is because accordions are something that are associated with Oktoberfest. Accordions and polka music. Hence why you've got this series of videos. What you're wearing is an important part. Lederhosen, or the leather pants or shorts. These are available as Bunthosen, which go down as knickers, or the Lederhosen that I'm wearing, are very commonly associated with Oktoberfest. Most of the time, the Lederhosen also include straps that are worn, like over this, and connect to your Lederhosen. But since we play the accordion, those straps get in the way of the accordion straps, so I prefer to wear a belt instead. I wear t-shirts a lot of times for the outdoor Oktoberfest because they're more comfortable, and I'll wear themed t-shirts that go along either with the band or with the event itself or with a German theme. But you have traditional Trachten dress shirts that are available to go with your Lederhosen. Also, socks. You'll have long socks or split socks that'll show up, and they have Miesbacher shoes Now, there are also less traditional shoes that are available from the different houses, and it's important to make sure that it's going to represent the personality of what your performance is going to be for the event. Also available are traditional and contemporary dandels and blouses. All of the trachten is available from ernstlich.com, which I will link in the description below. With that appearance, have fun. Have fun in how you dress, have fun in how you present your performance, and portray that to the audience. It's a lot better for you to portray a fun atmosphere. It helps the audience give that back to you in the same way. Even if you're just background music, it's good to see that it's appropriate and it's a good time. With that in mind, you also need to read that audience. Watch how they're reacting to the music that you're playing, the volume of your music, the tempos of your music. And if it's a dancing audience, if it's the correct tempos, are they struggling with the dance steps because it's too fast or too slow? Are they looking like they're enjoying that? Sometimes you're going to have audiences that are just comprised of listeners. They are enjoying it. They're enjoying the food. They're enjoying the drink. They're enjoying the camaraderie of their friends that are at the event. So you need to make sure that you are interacting if it looks like they want to be interactive, or you are providing appropriate atmosphere background music. The other thing is going to be having enough traditional repertoire and enough non-traditional repertoire and alternative repertoire. Because it's an Oktoberfest, I firmly believe you need to make sure that there is a certain amount of the traditional German, Austrian, polkas, waltzes, schunkeling songs so that you maintain the theme of the event. If you're going to dress for the event and you're going to hold the instruments, you need to make sure that you have music that is representative of the stereotypical Oktoberfest. At the same time, most of the time you're going to be performing, if you've been hired for this gig and you're not well versed in the repertoire, make sure that you have all the other repertoires that you're normally used to playing available to perform. That's going to hopefully connect with the other audiences that are there. Every Oktoberfest must contain one song. There is one song that is a toast, a cheer, that is called Ein Prosit, and that is the song we're going to learn here in this action step. Here is the most important toast that you will find at an Oktoberfest. This can be played any time during the event. It can be played at the beginning of the event, the end of the event, numerous times in the middle. Anytime you want to toast and get the people standing up and drinking and all of that stuff, you're going to do an Ein Prosit. If there are any words that you learn to sing in German, these are the ones, because this is something that everybody should be singing along. Ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit. Ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit. Prosit, Prosit, Prosit. 1, 2, 3, super. Zicke, zacke, zicke, zacke, hoi, hoi, hoi. Zicke, zacke, zicke, zacke, hoi, hoi, hoi. Zicke, zacke, zicke, zacke, hoi, hoi, hoi. Prost. Drink up. In this lesson, we're going to be approaching the heartbeat of the Oktoberfest celebration, the essential polka. This is the one type of music that is probably the most stereotypical and most commonly found repertoire at an Oktoberfest celebration. A polka is a song that is in 2/4 time, generally a very happy and jolly kind of beat. The tempo is most of the time going to be sitting around quarter note equals 120, though depending on the region or depending on the style of the song or depending on whether or not there's dancers or just a listening audience, that could range anywhere from like 106 to 130. Of course, when we do what we call a schneller, which is a really fast polka, those can really truck along. And then sometimes if you're going to go slower, you're going to go into the land of the Schottische or a Borische or something like that. But the polka is generally going to be within that range. When we play a polka, the main thing that you're going to be looking at is on the left hand. You want to get this umpa kind of thing going on. With the alternating bass. Okay, so just practice that, as if you're playing a march or any other type of 2/4, 4/4 kind of thing. It's just going to have a very steady beat. On the right hand, you're just going to be playing melody. If you're in a band, sometimes you're going to do chording, where you're going while a vocal is going on or a horn is taking the lead. Sometimes you'll put what is called an Oberkreiner Schittelweh. In other styles of polkas, sometimes you'll have a bellow shake, but that is more commonly found in the Polish style. But you'll do a rhythmic. But use that very sparingly for more traditional polkas in a German Oktoberfest celebration. If you are working on increasing your Oktoberfest repertoire, the first place you have to start is with the essential polkas. And you're always going to find songs like The Happy Wanderer, which is called Der Fröhliche Wandersmann, or Wooden Heart, Musi Den. The most popular polka that is found at any celebration is actually a Czech song in origin called Szkoda Laski. In German, we call it Rosamunde, or it's known as the Beer Barrel Polka or Roll Out the Barrel. But a great place to start is with a really basic one that is also just as familiar, a little song that's called In Heaven There Is No Beer, in Himmel da Gibt's Kein Bier. It's time for us to learn essential polka. Im Himmel da gibt's kein Bier, in heaven there is no beer. So, how I'm going to structure the instructional performance is to do hands separate to start off with. So, we're going to do just the left hand. So this way you can focus in on making sure that the beat is steady and that everything is going to make total sense in keeping with the construction and form of the song. So, 1, 2, 3, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. Now, that is just a basic way of playing a polka. You'll notice that there were a few little bass runs in there. You'll also notice that it's just basically the bumchik, umpa basic thing going on. If you are playing and you are doing MIDI bass with a band, sometimes you're going to just leave out the pa. You're going to leave out the chords because it makes sense to play those bass notes a little longer so that it locks in with your rhythm section a little more. So you go ba da 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 ba da 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 da. That way, you can use as many bass runs or as much variation as your ability or musicality permits. Now, to play the right hand, this is the melody. I'm going to take it just a wee bit slower so that we can lock it in. If you're learning it by ear, get an idea. I'm probably going to have a few ornamentations because honestly, I will ornament the music to my own flavor for the day with a little bit of scalar or a little bit of turns and all of that kind of thing. It's all based on what I'm feeling that day or the tempo that I'm playing at. But I'm going to try to keep it as straight as possible just so that you can get a flavor for the melody. Here it is, single note. Now with chords, adding a little more to it. Now, let me put it in at tempo. So this would be a typical polka tempo. And I'm also going to expound upon the song. I'm going to play the traditional second part that is available with a lot of the traditional German arrangements. There are numerous second sections that are added to it depending on regional areas. Some people use a interlude that was created for a Slovenian polka band, or some will use other interludes that are created from a Polish polka band. You can check those as your desires go. Sometimes you might want to add that. Sometimes you might want to modulate into a different key. So I'm just going to do a simple, basic, traditional German arrangement of this song. 2, 3. Keep in mind that you should check out as many recordings as you possibly can so that you can form your own style and your own presentation of the song, but you can base it on the way that it has been done by other accordionists and other bands before you. In this lesson, we're going to learn about waltzes. Waltzes are a very important part of the repertoire for any Oktoberfest celebration. When you want to have something that maintains the nice, happy feel of your traditional Oktoberfest without the driving force of the polka, that's when you're going to start incorporating the waltzes into your repertoire. Waltzes are defined as music that is played in 3/4 time, 3 beats to a measure. And for our purpose, the tempo is something that you're going to want a nice swaying kind of tempo. We call it schunkeling in German, when people sit at the tables and go links, rechts, left, right. Now you want to be very careful to make sure that this tempo is a very comfortable tempo for somebody to be swaying. Not too slow that it's a drag on it, and not too fast that when they're swaying, they spill their beverage on the person next to them. Also, many times this is going to be a dance for traditional people. And you want to make sure that that tempo is not straining the dancers, either too fast or too slow. So keep your eyes on the dance floor when you're performing for dancers. When you're playing and you have another instrument or a vocal, you can accompany on the right hand by going with just a little bit of back time, just like we did on the polka, or an Oberkreiner style. And you can move the chords around, put inversions in them, have passing notes, as much as you are comfortable with musically and stylistically. For your essential repertoire for waltzes at an Oktoberfest, it is very important that you have in München steht ein Hofbräuhaus, like the theme song of the most important beer hall in the world in Munich, Du liegst mir am Herzen, which is a very common German folk song, and a song that's not a German or Austrian folk song, but is very, very likely to be requested of you, is a song called Edelweiss from The Sound of Music. For our action step here, we're going to learn the Schnee Walzer, or the Snow Waltz, another very common Austrian song that you're going to find at a lot of Oktoberfest celebrations. Now we're going to learn Schnee Walzer, or the Snow Waltz. We're going to start off with the left hand, and the main purpose of doing the hands separate here is to get the articulation of the left hand to be smooth and at the same time consistent and at the same time very dictated. So I try to approach when I'm playing a waltz that my bass notes are going to be longer than the chord notes. We should actually also be approaching the same way with the polkas. If you notice in the last segment that I'll go with a... So that would be for a polka. For a waltz, you're going to go. because you don't want it to get mushy. You'll lose the flavor of the waltz where you get that lilt and that little beat that's going to keep people shunkling, and it's going to let the music keep flowing along. So to play, I'll just do a little bit of just the left hand on Schnee Walzer so that you can get a bit of an idea, and then when you're practicing along with the music, you can break it out on your own. So da 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 da. Da 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 And so work on that at a comfortable tempo for yourself, but make sure that the articulation is being addressed, because that, at whatever tempo you play it at, you want the consistency to make sure that that's going to work. Again, as we did with the polka, if you happen to be playing in a band and you're using MIDI to play the bass, you can do this without playing the chords to extend the length of that bass note so that it fills out the bottom of the tone better. Da 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 da. And you can have as much action or walking motion on that bass line as you desire or makes sense for your ability level. Now, for the right hand, I'd like to play it just a little bit slower. Again, you can ornament it as you find comfortable, but try to keep the integrity of the straight melody there. So I'm just going to play the melody to Schnee Walzer on the right hand, a little slower. 1, 2, 3, 1. Now to put both hands together and put it at about the normal waltz tempo for Schnee Walzer. 1, 2, 3, 1. figure dance we're going to learn today is a very traditional dance called a Jaeger Marsch Waltz, or the Hunter's March and Waltz. In other places, it is called a mixer, because this is a dance that is done where instead of couples dancing together, they come and they form two concentric circles. Generally, the men are on the outside and the women are on the inside, and they march during the march section of a song. They march in opposite directions, and then when it turns into a waltz, when it goes to 3/4 time from the 2/4 march, you take the person who is across from you and you dance the waltz with that person. When it goes back to a march, you go back into your male circle and the female circle concentrically and marching in opposite directions. So this way, during the course of the Jaeger Marsch Waltz, you get to dance with a few different partners, and it's a great way for people to meet each other and to have a great time. So the march section of the song goes like this. Then a waltz. And you can repeat the waltz a second time if you'd like. You can go back to the march. Now, as a musician, you can have more fun with this song, because you can possibly just play the Jaeger March and then play the waltz 2 times, and sometimes you can do the march twice. But then sometimes we'll go and mess around with the audience a little more, because you'll start noticing certain people are trying to jockey to positions where they're going to be wanting to dance with a specific person. So what you can do is you can mess with that a little bit. So I'm going to just give you an example how I like to play the Jaeger Marsch Waltz, and just randomly stop the march at certain times and go into the waltz. And then, of course, the waltz is going to always remain regular, but then you go back to the march and then stop it wherever you want to. Okay. 1, 2, 3. It's good to repeat the waltz, because sometimes, depending on the amount of people, it might take a little longer for them to find a partner. Two, three, one. In this lesson, we're going to be approaching some of the Rocktoberfest repertoire, the stuff that you're going to be wanting to play to appeal to the cross-section of younger and more energetic audiences that show up at a lot of the Oktoberfest celebrations. This is going to allow you to connect with a range of audiences and get a higher energy, while also at the same time you don't want to lose the theme of the event. This is going to be more of our non-traditional repertoire. Non-traditional doesn't always have to mean new music. You must make sure that you're playing stuff that you are comfortable playing on this instrument, as well as with the accompanying musicians you have if you have a band. This is also a great way to express some of your personality and your experience in other music. As an accordionist, a lot of time we develop repertoire in different nationalities, and the party songs that are popular with Italians and Irish and Mexicans and French and all the other nationalities you play for can get brought into an Oktoberfest celebration. In fact, a lot of times the songs transfer over borders. Like the French Edith Piaf song Milord has become a German figure dance hit called Das Rote Pferd, or the Red Horse. Also, when you're playing in different areas of the United States or Canada, you're going to find that certain musical styles or certain songs are popular. Don't discount the ability to add those to your repertoire for an Oktoberfest in order to connect with your audience. Examples of this would be like when in Tennessee or with University of Tennessee fans playing Rocky Top. When you're in the state of Ohio and you see Ohio State hats on, Hang On Sloopy is a huge song. When you're playing and the Pennsylvania Polka shows up in your repertoire, know that that is also a fight song for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Having your common Zydeco tunes and your common rock songs show up. So this is a time to know that Hey Baby is always going to be a crowd sing-along song. To have Brown Eyed Girl, Country Roads by John Denver was a huge hit at the Oktoberfest in Munich many years ago, and it also resonates with the audience. So for our action step here today, we're going to work on just some simple accompanying styles for playing Rocktoberfest repertoire. Now we're going to be approaching how to accompany on some of these Rocktoberfest songs. It's got to be definitely the most difficult part of discerning how you're going to take the accordion and approach repertoire that was definitely not composed or conceived with the accordion in mind. But this is one of the advantages to playing the accordion. You have an instrument that can play melody, harmony, and rhythm all at the same time. So when you're approaching each song, you have to find how you're going to serve the song and convey it to an audience in the best possible manner. So if you're performing as a soloist, it's going to possibly have one set of accompaniment that needs to be approached. If you're performing with a band, there's another set of accompaniment. So let's talk about performing as a soloist. If you're performing as a soloist and you are not singing, your options are extremely limited. Now, that's not saying that it's a bad thing, but you have to find out how you're going to go about to do this. If you're playing and you're not singing as a soloist, you are basically limited to playing the melody over on the right hand of the instrument and playing an accompaniment on the left hand of the instrument. So if we do something like this, that's how you would approach a certain rock song. Now, in other situations, if you're playing in a band, sometimes you won't even have to play the left hand of the instrument at all. Because if there's a bass player and a drummer and all of that is being taken care of, all you have to focus on is the right hand. And that can be as much as just playing the chords as whole notes. In what we would call pads. Now, in order to practice this, well, with all of these, I highly recommend you need to find the recordings of songs that you want to play and start playing along with them. Whether or not you have the music, try to let your ear follow the chord changes and follow what the rhythmic action should be. If you need something that's going to be a little more rhythmic, you can take that exact same progression that we were just playing, which was just a simple G, C, D7, G, and then just add. And I just added a simple little bass line. Now, obviously, as you're trying different repertoires, you're going to have different chord progressions that are going to show up. You're going to have different rhythmic needs. Take full advantage of the instrument. Just because everything is loud doesn't mean that you have to keep amping the volume up. When you get into a verse of a song, sometimes you want to go with pads, and you'll use it if you have a male singer going really high in his range. You could have pads going low on the accordion, and using a musette switch or using a clarinet switch, which is going to be louder, and then you can build up. Get louder. Use the master. The main course is to serve the song and to convey it to the audience in the proper style. In this lesson, we're going to be studying a little bit about the more traditional or the slower repertoire that could be requested at an Oktoberfest celebration. When you're going to be having some calmer listening audiences, or maybe sometimes the traditional dancing audience, or sometimes this is just some of the selections that you're going to play while people are having the dinner hour, or they are just getting situated at the Oktoberfest before you're going to get into the rousing, rollicking polkas and waltzes, and later on possibly the Rocktoberfest repertoire. These songs are going to be in different meters sometimes. When you have a ballad, it could be a 4/4 ballad or a 6/8 ballad. You could have slow waltzes. You can also have just Latin rhythms are going to show up sometimes. So it's important to keep an eye out on the accompanying papers that are going to tell you some of the repertoire that you can look for, either in printed music or in recorded music. Some of the most important songs to keep in mind for this type of programming in your set are going to be Lily Marlene, a popular old wartime ballad, Sierra Madre, which is a more modern song in the German repertoire, Auf Wiedersehen, which is a closing song for the night. Also, we have the slow waltz Patrona Bavariae. But for our action step here, we want to learn a traditional dance, which is a Rhinelander or a Schottish, and this song is going to be the Holzauction. The next selection we're going to work on is the Holzauction Schottische. A Schottish is a traditional dance. It's like a very slow polka. Sometimes in other areas of the country, they're going to call it, a Schottish is going to be called a Rhinelander. In other places, a Bayerische or a Bavarian dance is about the same tempo. It might be a little more insistent with a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And a lot of times when you have a Bayerische, if you have a drummer, they're going to play more of a funky rock pattern as opposed to a Schottish or a Rhinelander where they're going to play a more strict boom chick rhythm. Now, so your left hand is going to basically be playing a much like a polka with the umpa beat. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that different areas of the country, their audiences might have different dance steps for the Schottish. It is very important that you make sure that the dance is not played too fast or they will not be able to dance it. The other issue to keep in mind when you're playing with different musicians is that sometimes the eighth notes are swung, sometimes they are straight eighth notes. It all depends on the preferences of the musicians. The more traditional version, of course, is going to be with straight eighth notes. But the Dutchman tradition in the Midwest United States, upper Midwest, they were heavily influenced by the swing dance bands, and therefore a lot of those bands will swing their Schottisches. So you want to keep in mind the difference between and so that is something that you just want to be listening for. This song is actually much more popular in the upper Midwest United States than it is with the first-generation Germans. So I'm going to probably play this performance just a little more swung than some of the other straight Rhinelanders. So hope you get some enjoyment out of this little performance and work along with the music to the Holzauction Schottische. Here's the Holzauction Schottische. Now it's time to apply everything that we've learned. You want to put all of these songs together and start constructing some sets so that you can get the best reaction to your performance at an Oktoberfest celebration. Most of the time when you're performing at an Oktoberfest, you're going to have a set somewhere in between 45 to 90 minutes in length. Optimum is 60 minutes. But you have to make sure that it is meeting the needs of the people that you're performing for and also the people who are paying you to perform. I tend to start off most of my sets with one or two traditional polkas, something that's happy, light, easy to play, so that it's something that you're feeling comfortable with your instrument, you're feeling comfortable with the sound of the room, and you're giving the right beginning feeling to the event. Then I'll play some Schnee Walzes, depending on if it is an interactive audience or an atmosphere situation. I'll talk to the audience a little bit, instruct them on how to Schnee and try to get some interaction going on there. If it is an interactive audience, that's a perfect time after that to do the first Ein Prosit of the night, or afternoon, or morning, depending on where your audience is and what time it is. In the middle of your set, you're going to sit there and start going, okay, start mixing it up a little bit. Put some more traditional polkas and waltzes, maybe some Rocktoberfest tunes to see, or a regional favorite. And then as you're heading into the end, you want to build that set up to a climax. So if you've got an interactive type of audience, you want to make sure that you're playing whatever dance music is working for them. If you don't have that, then you're going to want to just gear it down and make sure that you're playing more of the selections that are fitting the vibe of the room. But a lot of times I like to end with something that's going to get the attention, get a rise out of the audience. So you can end with a figure dance like the chicken dance, or we can do what this action step is going to be, do a traditional German march. And if you have the ability to stroll as a soloist, accordionist, this is a good time to go out into the audience and start a little march around the room like a snake dance. Or if you have other members of your band that have mobile instruments, they can go out and start that. And so we're going to learn the traditional German march, Erika. We're going to continue on learning a traditional German march. This is one of the most common marches, a little song that's called Erika. Also, it's occasionally played as a waltz. Some of the Polish bands have known it as the White Roses Waltz, and as a result, some of the Slovenian and the German bands have adapted it into three-quarter time, but its traditional form is as a march. And I like to use this as a set closer sometimes. It's a great way to have a snake dance line, march line going through a parade, which allows people of all ages to get together and just march around and enjoy the Oktoberfest. When we're playing in march time, on the left hand of the accordion, you're just going to put the bass and the chord together with this. So you have those single quarter notes, da, 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 one, triplet one, will come in based on the phrasing of a song. Then what happens is, as the song goes on, you'll hear how it goes from the march time into a polka rhythm of. So you want to be able to distinguish when that's happening. So I'm going to play this. I find that you should probably practice this hands separate along with this video, but let me play it at a slow tempo with both hands so that you can hear where one part is going against each other. Listen to it numerous times so that you can discern when it's switching from the march rhythm to the polka rhythm and back and forth. Practice that left hand as many times as you can without the right hand so that becomes automatic. This is common in the form of many German marches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Polka. Now you're going to keep going with the polka. So at that point, when I said you can keep going with the polka, you have the option of possibly going back to the march. Most of the time, I'll keep the polka going even though it is the same form as the march earlier because it keeps the intensity going. Now, if I'm going to repeat the entire song, then I'll go back to the march at that point, and that helps delineate to the audience members that might know the words and are singing that it's back at the beginning of the song. That also helps cue in your drummer if you're playing, again, with a band. But these are all things to keep in mind. Let me play it at full tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Thank you for participating in this Oktoberfest music tutorial. I hope that you have found it both educational and entertaining, and that it's just the beginning of your journey in developing the repertoire necessary to be able to perform at Oktoberfest celebrations. I hope that as you continue studying music, that you're able to let your own personality come through while you develop your own technique and personal musicianship in overall music as well as in this genre. Going further, please make sure you check out the accompanying materials for the extra resources, essential recordings, sources for sheet music, and links for lessons and consultations for your band. In the meantime, I'd like to close out with a little song that I've composed, a little polka for the accordion called The Kitchen Sink.